joke around that for 22 years I've been taking orders from the Navy, and as we were approaching retirement, Katie and I really started to think through and pray through what would it look like to start taking orders from God.
Yeah. I mean, they've encouraged me well, they've loved me well, and I really just love the people here at APC. I mean, this has been a congregation that I've loved.
Welcome, APC Church family. We're just so glad that you've joined us for another opportunity to take a closer look at some of the ministries and some of the changes here at APC. And so we want to use this platform to help inform you and to give you some insights into some of the changes, maybe some of the sermon series or those things of that nature. And so today we're really excited and we're happy to have with us Pastor Tom and Matt and Josh, and we're going to talk about their new roles here at APC. We're going to start, and I just want to take an opportunity just to get to know Matt and Josh a little bit. And so if you guys, we'll start with you, Josh. That way I'll give Matt a little more time to, because I threw this wasn't one of the questions in this. So I'll give him a little more time to make sure he gets it right. First of all, where are you from? Your wife, your kids? And then also just let us know if there were one place that you could go and travel. Money wasn't an object. What would that be and why?
Well, thanks, Mike. I've been married for 12 years now to Stacy. We met in seminary, so I came over from Australia where I was born, but spent a lot of my years growing up in New Zealand, having a parent from both. But came over to seminary, got married, ended up staying a little longer than I thought, and now we have 4 boys, Hudson, Sam, Will, and Henry.
Okay.
And so, it's been a fun ride with those guys. The roots have grown deep since I got here.
One more for a basketball team?
That's right, we're getting close.
Okay.
In terms of place I'd like to go, I mean, Tom's intrigued me with some of these trips over to Italy, so that's got my interest.
Okay.
But I think it's been a while since I got back to Australia and New Zealand, and so I think that's where I'd go if I could.
Okay. When you said Tom intrigued, I thought for a moment you were going to say Pittsburgh. Matt, how about you, man?
Yeah, thank you, Mike. I've been married for 20 years to Katie. I grew up in upstate New York, kind of all my life up there, and then joined the Navy, met Katie while I was in the Navy, and we have 4 kids. Jake, Maggie, Gus, or Augustus, and Woodrow. And as far as where would I travel, I think probably Italy too, Italy or Spain, maybe even the island of Crete. I did some time there in the Navy, but never got to take my family there.
Yeah.
But we have a lot of fond memories of family. Lago di Garda in Italy was just a great place, and would love to go back there with Katie.
Yeah, well, thank you guys, and we're going to get right into some of these questions. And recently, as a church, we've added Josh as an associate pastor, and we've added Matt as a executive director of APC. And so we wanted to talk about that a little bit more, to let the church know why we made these changes, what they add to us as a congregation, and what we can expect you guys in your new roles. So Tom, I want to start with you. If you could you just give us a little insight as to why we made those changes, what his role was before, and then what that brings to the table in the role of an associate pastor?
Sure, Mike. Yeah, the session called Josh as an assistant pastor 6 years ago after he graduated from RTS seminary. And so an assistant pastor is called by the elders. An associate pastor is called by the congregation. So our congregation did that at the congregational meeting about 3 weeks ago. They voted to elect Josh to be associate pastor, which means probably most of all that he's now a member of the session. Okay. An assistant pastor is not, an associate pastor is. So Josh will be at all the session meetings, he'll have a vote at the session meetings. And I think beyond that, just generally an associate pastor has maybe some more responsibility in the church.
Okay, some of his responsibilities as an assistant and associate, are they carrying over? Is he adding to that, or is that how's that work?
Yeah, good question. Well, Josh has been pastor of Congregational Life since he came. And as pastor of Congregational Life, that'll continue. So think of associate pastor as more of an overarching title, but pastor of Congregational Life is more his duties. And that means that Josh is overseeing all the Covenant Fellowship Group ministry of the church, which is, as you know, is a big part of our ministry. He's also overseeing men's and women's ministries. And then about a year and a half, 2 years ago, the session asked Josh to be pastor of missions as well. So he has a lot on his plate, but associate pastor means that now he is fully engaged in all the session meetings, a member of session.
Okay. Josh, did you know all that stuff was going to be on your plate when you...
I think I knew what I signed up for.
Okay, that's great, man. Well, Josh, let me ask you this, man. You know, coming out of seminary and right into ministry, it's a real blessing and a privilege to be able to have that opportunity to do that. What's been your greatest joy in doing that and making that transition?
Yeah, I think the greatest joy, ministry-wise, over at least the last 10 years, I think, is kind of twofold.
Mm-hmm.
I think, it's a spiritual work, and so the ability to grow in fellowship with God, Father and the Son, that is, someone could say, well, that's a pretty pat answer, but I think it's been true. I still remember when Tom said they were looking for a director at that time of Congregational Life,
Mm-hmm.
and he started reading out all the job description, and I said to him, I couldn't have written a better job description if this was my job. And so it was just evidence of what God was doing through the church,
Right.
but also what he'd been preparing me for and giving me a desire for. He was, I can't always say that was the case, but he was changing those desires for this time, for this place.
Yeah.
I think the other thing would be the congregation. This has been a congregation that I've loved.
Yeah.
They've encouraged me well, they've loved me well, and I really just love the people here at APC.
What has been one of your biggest challenges, stepping into this role and into an assistant pastor these last few years? What's been one of your biggest challenges?
Yeah, I think when I came to RTS Orlando to seminary and left Australia, I think Tom spoke to it well in the charge for the installation service. This idea of fear and trembling. There's a lot of fear coming from Australia to the States, a new country, but also I didn't even think I had the smarts for seminary, a master's level course, and so I've been out of study for a while. Felt like I was more practically minded and things like that. I didn't necessarily see myself in that, but the Lord was faithful to meet me in all the challenges along the way, and so I think that's been a theme coming into ministry as well. Is just God, there's still ministry during the week, but also preaching.
Yeah.
That still takes a lot of fear and trembling, and it's not something I would naturally want to gravitate to necessarily. But God's been faithful in meeting me there, knowing that I can't give faith. He has to do that, and so I'm totally reliant on Him even in the midst of that. That's been a challenge to continue to enter into that.
Yeah, there's a book out, they say what they never taught me in seminary. And some guys have just been looking at their years in ministry and their years in the seminary. For you, what didn't they teach you that you wish they had have taught you in seminary as you've gotten boots on the ground here at APC? And you're like, well, I really wish we would have had some more time in there. Anything like that for you?
I could probably, if I think about it long enough, I could probably find something, but I think it wasn't so much what they didn't teach you or a class so much as I think seminary doesn't necessarily prepare you for suffering and for trials and affliction and things like that.
Yeah.
That takes time, and I think that's the thing. God puts you in places because He wants to be able to use you in ministry, and so it's not always easy. There's things that happen from without, but there's also spiritual challenges from within and that you face, and I think that's something that seminary never really prepared me for, but God's been faithful again, just meeting me in those struggles and trials and challenges, and I'm confident that he'll use them for His good.
What are some ways that we can be praying for you as you continue to minister here at APC?
I think maybe just a general one. I think that I ought to be an abider in Christ. I don't want to be someone who, peters out. And again, I think Tom spoke to that well in the charge. I mean, I just had a friend who discipled me in college who got pancreatic cancer 4 months ago, and the Lord's taken him to be with him, and in 4 months. And so, when he takes me home, whenever that is, I want to be ready. But at the same time, I want to be as much fruit as I can in the time being, and while I can do that at APC, I'm glad to do that.
Yeah. Well, I think I speak for everyone in the congregation, man. We're so grateful for your care for us and for your heart and for your ministry. And we look forward to many years of faithful service from you. So thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
For that, your commitment to us as a church. Tom, the session voted to bring Matt on as the executive director. So if you could maybe give us a little history. What is an executive director? How does it differ from an office manager or all the other different things? And what does Matt's role bring to us as a church and to you as a pastor?
Yeah, great question. We had an executive director of ministries at the APC a long time ago. About 15 years ago, we had one for a couple of years, and then it was part-time for a number of years. But this is the first time in a long time that we have Matt coming on board as executive director of ministries. And I think the role is really to kind of oversee all the internal operations of the church, the administrative part of it, which is a huge relief to me. We have very capable people that are involved in that already. But I think the executive director oversees all of that, and the internal operations, the administration, which allows me to focus more on just ministry.
Okay.
And so I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
And Matt will also oversee the staff. And that's, it's a big job. It's a lot to it. But I'm really grateful that the Lord has brought Matt here to fill this role.
Matt, you recently retired from the military. Could you just give us a brief history of the journey for you and how you ended up doing this and what that has looked like for you?
Yeah. I'm 22 years I served in the Navy as an officer, and the journey certainly had its ups and downs, but probably about 4 years ago, it was kind of like God just grabbed hold of me in a new way. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of that was related to prayer. Okay. Tom had given a sermon. Katie and I were sitting there, and he says, hey, if you want to grow in intimacy as a couple, mm-hmm. With your spouse, start praying together. Mm-hmm. And, Katie was like, hey, did you hear that? Yeah, I heard.
How'd you hate those kind of sermons,
boy? But we really kind of took it to heart, and I think it was God really put that burden in our hearts. Yeah. And so we started to pray together, and I started to pray, not just say my prayers, but really pray. Mm-hmm. And that really started to change me in some ways. Year in and year out, we have the advertisement for officers. Anybody want to take the training class? And as an officer in the Navy, leadership is kind of what we're asked to do. Mm-hmm. Supervise people, manage people, lead people. And so it's something that I've always loved about that part of my job. Mm-hmm. And but year in and year out, I always found an excuse, something just, not the right time. Yeah, kids, wrong stage of life. Hey, we're going to be moving again, mm-hmm. military, not the right time. And God just kind of moved all that stuff aside and made it really clear, like, no more excuses, man. Yeah. Time to take the class. Mm-hmm. Not sure if I'm calling, I wasn't sure if I was going to actually stand for election mm-hmm. until, pretty far into the training. Okay. But that's just that was my path, onto session. And then the path onto this role as executive director has been a multi-year journey. Okay. I kind of joke around that for 22 years I've been taking orders from the Navy, mm-hmm. and as we were approaching retirement, Katie and I really started to think through and pray through what would it look like to start taking orders from God. Mm. that was like I said, it was multiple years worth of just praying, not specifically for the executive director thing, but what's even possible. What's even possible, Lord? What do you want us to do as a family? And so we started to just kind of pray through that, and God started to make things very clear. And hey, this is possible. Cleared paths. Closed doors that were here or there, and I'm just grateful and thrilled to kind of to be holding on, holding on, and being a part of this journey.
Was it an easy journey? You know what I mean? Just like, from elder and then to making this transition, was that, oh, this was a piece of cake to get these answers, or what did that look like, for you just personally on that journey?
Yeah, no, I mean, it was not easy. And, I got 3 weeks under my belt, so come ask me in 2 months, but, I will say, my eyes are now open even wider. One of the things that was really convicting as an elder was, frankly, some of my lack of prayer for staff or the pastors, and then at becoming an elder, it was like, whoa, okay, my eyes have been opened a little bit wider to what's going on. And now I think on staff, I never realized just like how hard they're working, all the things they're doing to make a worship service even come together, but then all the other things throughout the week that are provided. And so now, I'm dipping my toe into that.
I mean, I think that's helpful. Especially just for us in the congregation as Christians, understand. Sometimes we just think, oh yeah, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, and the way God unfolds our lives, the way He brings it all together, it just seems like there's these unrelated incidents and points, but God's working it all for His glory. And that doesn't mean everybody's going to end up in Christian ministry, but it does mean that God will direct us where He wants us, and so He's always at work. So that's just really exciting, man, to hear. As I've asked Josh, how could we be praying for you as you are entering into this role?
So first off, personally, I guess one of my biggest prayers is that my work and my new duties don't get in the way of my faith or my worship. And Tom said this during officer training, the thing that we offer the congregation as an officer of the church is our own broken hearts, our own transforming hearts, our God, living out of the gospel, living out of weakness, and growing in our character. And so I don't want that to get in the way. So that's probably the biggest thing as far as me personally. For my family, spiritual attacks are a real thing, and I just people could be praying, because now I'm stepping in a new way. And I feel like there could be more spiritual attack. And then for my job, humility. Pray that I would be a humble man, for listening, that I would listen, and for learning. I have a lot to learn still, and I want to be someone who's learning well. And so those are kind of probably the highlights for how you could pray for me.
One of the things I just say as a member of APC and getting to know the elders, I am grateful for the hearts of humility. And, these men are serving and they're caring for us, and they're not coming like, yeah, I got it all together, but they're all coming recognizing their need and their brokenness. And there's no greater gift that you can give to a church than to have leaders who understand where their strength lies and where it comes from. And they're resting and depending on Christ. And they don't do it perfectly, but they're striving. So thank you guys for what you bring and what you give to us as a congregation. Tom, you're the pastor, so I'm going to give you the last word. Is there anything that, in this discussion that we haven't covered, or anything that, you'd like to just say to the congregation before we close this out?
Just really thankful for the team that God has assembled. It's a huge help to have Matt come on as Executive Director of Ministries at this time. There's so much going on. The construction of the new building, the growth, the change in staffing, Josh has been on staff now for 10 years, and he's been such a joy and help in so many ways with congregational care. And Mike, as our pastoral associate, and it's been a joy to work with you, Mike, and together as a team. I think that's something that is a really an unusual thing in ministry, for a senior pastor to be able to work with men that I just enjoy so much, but I respect so much. You know, you can enjoy people but not necessarily respect their spiritual maturity.
Yeah.
And you can probably respect people and not enjoy them. You know?
Right.
But I think I can say that God has assembled such a great team here. Men that I respect and I enjoy, and just so grateful to be able to do it as a team.
Yeah. Again, I want to say thank you guys just for your time and for sharing with us. And APC family, I hope this has been helpful for you to understand just some of the changes that have happened here at APC, and also giving you better ways to be praying for your leaders, and also to appreciate what God has done for us and has sent to us here at the church. So thank you guys for watching, and hope this has been helpful. And we want to let you tell you to look forward for the next episode of A Closer Look, where we'll be exploring a little bit more of some of the ins and outs of APC. So thanks so much for joining us this afternoon. And thank you guys again.
Thanks, Mike.